if you wanted to use that switch over to low pressure, you have to do it here. So that's what it defaults, at least on ours, it does that. And then, but if you need to make this change, you have to do it while it's on either standby or in non-ventilation mode. And you just hit your confirm. You're good to go. Now you're on low pressure. But let's leave, I feel like you probably leave it on high pressure output for the most part. And then if you wanted to transfer your data onto your hard drive, say, that's where you'd push this export logs button. Then configuration, that's a Hamilton administrator thing, so I don't worry about that. So events, this is useful. So say you get in the throes of the call and you're trying to get stuff done. You don't know, when did I make this adjustment from X setting to, Y setting. It tells you everything. And then it also will tell you the alarms. So apneic alarm, you want to know when did they go apneic on your documentation, you can look through here. Now you can get into this screen. You've gotten a patient off the ventilator, you're going about it, you shut the ventilator off. Yeah, crap, I didn't figure out. You can turn this ventilator off, and then you decide you want to get it, so you go turn it back on. You can go to last patient, and you can still get into the events screen. But once you turn the ventilator off, and then you decide you want to get that stuff, if you went in and had already entered in some new settings and confirmed another ventilation, you can't get into it. So you can either get your events right afterwards before you turn it off, or you can turn it back on and go to last patient. But if you enter anything and restart it, you can no longer get it. So system here, we talked about that. So you can go to your system. You can either get into that pre-op to get your info and your settings, or you can just go to system. It brings up all the same thing. So there's kind of two ways to get into that. So right here for us, it almost always defaults into ASV mode or NIV mode, depending on which one was used last. And what the mode is telling you that right there. Some ventilators will have presets right here, like if you wanted to, like that. Sorry, I'm on last patient. And these are the ones that you're most likely going to see. ASV, NIV, or SIMV Plus is probably the three that we will be dealing with. I've used PRVC in the past, pressure regulated volume control, but that's not something that we're probably going to use. So you can do these quick ones right here if you don't want to get into modes. Male, female, just click on the one you want, obviously for whatever your patient is. And then you need to know their height. And then once you do their height in, ours is in inches. You may see it in centimeters. I'm not entirely sure what the state vent has. Hopefully inches. But nonetheless, you have to convert it to a number then it gives you their ideal body weight. So it determines the ventilation calculation for you on ideal body weight. If we go into the tabs mode tabs, it gives you everything that you wanted. So these are volume controlled and adaptive. If you weren't doing a ventilation strategy where you're wanting to use volume as your measurements, you'd have CMV plus, SIMV plus. I'm going to explain the difference on another video, but there's no assist control, which is what we use on the Zoll. So this is going to be the other thing you'll use. Then this is pressure controlled biphasic. So you can do pressure controlled ventilation, pressure controlled SIMV, which just means that you're delivering breaths in SIMV mode based off of volume off of pressure instead of volume. If the patient just needs a little bit of something to help them, but they're spontaneously breathing, you can do spontaneously breathing. Dual PAP is a Hamilton thing. I've never used it. I don't know much about it. And then APRV, which is, we've had to do a couple times for these really sick COVID patients. It's similar to almost inverse ventilation. Actually, it is inverse ventilation. And then the ASV, this is a Hamilton design specific ventilation mode. And we'll talk about it as well. It's a very useful tool, especially on super sick patients. You can't just figure out what's going on and you need to get some time to think. And then your non-invasives, which we'll talk about too. But I know that we got high flow right here. Chief's in the process of figuring out how we can do these high flow 40, 50, 60 liter per minute patients, and that's where you would go from here. NINV, ST, that's non-invasive positive pressure ventilation. Every vent manufacturer has their own deal, so non-invasive ventilation and then non-invasive ventilation, ST. The difference being you have a backup apnea rate on ST, so it tends to be the one I use. So if they were to stop breathing for whatever reason, then you could use that for a default apnea. But every time that you make a deal, you gotta make sure a decision, you gotta hit confirm. And then, like for instance, this only interfaces with high flow. There's certain tools and equipment that you need, so active humidification is mandatory. We have the humidification systems. We're just figuring out the logistics of it all. But if you needed to give it, you can go all the way up some crazy amount. So got to cancel that out, then you can cancel that out. Like I said, talked about, you can get into last patient, and then like right here it says to power off. We're in standby mode right now. You can get in standby mode. It starts in standby mode, and then say you picked everything you wanted. You start your ventilation. It gives you this, but you wanted to go back into it, you'd hit the power button, activate standby. It goes back into this screen. To turn the ventilator off, so say I chose to do this, I can't press and hold. You have to be in standby to shut the vent off. So activate, then you would press and hold for 3 seconds. Shuts off. Oh, and the most important thing sometimes, I forgot to mention this earlier, I believe, here is your alarm cancel. So if you're getting an alarm, now one thing, I don't know if we'll get into it, if you'll see it, but I do need to mention is there's 2 different types of alarm you'll get. There's a yellow alarm, which means you need to do something. They will beep. And then there's a red alarm. A red alarm is something you have to get taken care of right now. It's detrimental to the patient, whatever's going on. A yellow alarm you can cancel out, but it will keep acknowledging all these things. And you can also go into events if you've got an alarm going. See, good thing here, loss of power would be yellow. That just means that you were unplugged from your charging system. And then if I was to go plug this into an outlet, that would cancel itself out. If it was beeping up here, it's always going to be on your events. Okay, so we'll go into, let's just do ASV. These is the default screen. So as I said, it defaults to ASV or NIV, whichever one you just used. So you can make your adjustments here as you want to see fit if you didn't want to get into the specialty. You wanted to change your PEEP. Just remember that it's touch, adjust, and confirm with either this knob or with your finger. So you can go into controls. This is more specific. I don't know what that is. So I do adjust flow trigger as needed. That just is how the amount of flow that it takes for them to trigger inspiratory breath, oxygen. So that's on the basic menu, and like ASV has multiple menus. PRAMP is like the rise time on the Zoll. It's how much pressure or volume, pressure and or volume they're giving for their breath. And then ETS is just adjusting ventilation. So it's what stimulates the expiratory phase. Not necessarily going to be able to be used in non-invasive. It can be, if they're obtunded, but you shouldn't have them on the vent if they're obtunded. They control all that stuff for you. What's nice to see here is it kind of gives you, it calculates for you the minute volume that you're giving. So if you do your math prior to putting them on and you realize that you have X amount, well, this right here will tell you what you're shooting for. So if you're shooting for 8 liters per minute right here for minute volume, you're good to go. But say you wanted a little bit more, you would increase your minute volume, and it tells you that right there. And then once you're good there, you got everything set, you would hit start ventilation. It kind of gives you this nice screen. We'll go into modes and then run through the NIV real quick. Gotta hit confirm. So then this, your basics. This is the apnea rate that I was telling you about. This is NIV ST. Now if you watch, if I leave this alone, it will cancel itself out. Let's say I decided that I didn't want to be an ASV, forgot to click on my main menu. You can go to SIMV, then you would confirm, and it brings up your new setting. This is the backup rate, so PINSP is the same as pressure support in our CPAP mode on the ZOLL. And basically all this P-inspiratory is going to do is the amount of pressure being shot in on inspiratory phase to assist them with breathing. So if they're having trouble breathing, can't get enough air, stuff like that, you just turn that up. PEEP and CPAP, that's just that's PEEP is PEEP. It's what we use to try to improve oxygenation to excuse me, hold everything open. Oxygen FiO2, flow trigger we talked a little bit about. Your inspiratory time, so this is how you would adjust your IDE ratio. So right now it's at an IDE to 1 to 5, and so you wanted to get them down to 1 to 3. You would just increase that. So now you have your inspiratory of 1.5 seconds. And then as you can see right here, you've got an IDE ratio of 1 to 3, and you've got an exhalation time of 4.5 seconds. If I went back down to 1, you can see that now I've changed my inspiratory time to 1 second. That makes sense that my expiratory time is 6 seconds because everything's based upon a 6-second breath. So if you started jacking around, you'd see that I went up to 2 seconds for inspiratory. That means the breath's given over 2 seconds. Then they're going to have 4 seconds to exhalate. So remember, and then we got to go into more. P-ramp again, we talked a little bit about. You can do ETS. I don't know how much it's going to help, but if you have somebody that you need to help them ventilate more than oxygenate, you increase usually to about 40. This helps them exhale better. TI max, I don't jack with. We'll let the Hamilton guy explain that to you. And then P-ramp again is like the rise, so it's how fast and how much air is giving it earlier in the breath. A shorter, faster time, so decreasing, so now it's given over 50 milliseconds instead of 100 milliseconds, means that you're giving this breath in faster at earlier exhale or inspiration, and it just helps them feel a little better. So it'd be similar to decreasing your rise time on the ZOLL. And then you can go back, and this also tells you here when you get into patient mode that how long you've been running the vent.